this is an odd place for Mama Cat now. I'm telling you what, she's usually on my work on the kitchen. So here's something different with Mama Cat. Well, I had some time to kill on the other video, but it didn't work out, so I had to change things around because this right here video was too long to put where I wanted to. So I was like, oh well, I'll have to change things around. So I did. Alright, let me show you how we're going to make this right here.
Have you had an encounter you'd like to have narrated on this channel? Well, if so, send me an email with all the details. You can email it to contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Hello there, everyone. Well, listen up. We're going to start off tonight with a comment that was just left on a recent video. I think it was left last night. And then we're going to go into North Carolina and Northwest Arkansas. So if you haven't already, go grab your snackage and get saddled up. The horses are out there, they're waiting, they're ready, and you know the Sasquatches are waiting for us down in the darkness, just down the trail in Sasquatch Valley. Let's go. Here's what Roger left on a recent video. I'm retired. My wife and I were camping near the Continental Divide in Colorado. We have an old 1971 camper that we rebuilt with a diamond plate silhouette of a Bigfoot on the door. At around midnight, we were awakened with a clicking sound that kept repeating. It sounded like two rocks being smacked together. Always two clicks. It came from near our camper, then another two clicks from farther out in the forest. We laid there, alert, and stayed quiet. It kept on for about 10 minutes, with the closest one getting closer each time. Finally, it got quiet, and we could hear something walking around our camper. It kept brushing up against it and rocking it. We heard it walk around the camper and up to the door. I was just inside that door, and the window was slightly open. In the darkness, it looked like a shadow passing by my window and brushing alongside the camper. Then it grabbed the doorknob and twisted it in both directions. In the morning, I wanted to know how high our doorknob was. Standing on the ground, the doorknob came to my nose. It was not a bear. That same thing happened the next night, too, and in the same way as the night before. For some reason, I wasn't scared. Neither was my wife. The third night it rained. At around midnight, I went out in the rain, naked, and held my arms out to rinse myself off. If you've never done that, it's far more refreshing than a shower. When I got back into the camper, I looked at the time. It was 12:14. I wonder if I was being watched. No matter. We didn't have any more activity like that for the next 5 days when we left. The experience has us both wondering about it. Thanks. I live in North Carolina, and this happened near my small farm in Montgomery County in December of 2023. I had a corn pile I used for my deer hunting trips. I also have a hang-on deer stand attached to a pine tree close to the corn pile. I do not shoot does at the deer stand. I just hunt the bucks who wander through looking for a hot doe during the rutting season. In North Carolina, the corn piles are legal during the deer season. It was early in the week, probably a Tuesday, when I was in the stand. I had not been seeing as many deer as I had normally been seeing in the past. That got me curious as to what had happened to them. Anyway, I had not had any luck since I got up in the stand around 7 a.m. that morning, and it was approaching 3 p.m. I then heard something walking in the leaves, like a human being coming down toward me, but not in a direct line. Every time he would
The
step,
horses are out there,
was a
they're
sharp
waiting,
stab
they're ready,
between each
and you know
step.
the Sasquatches are
I
waiting
could
for
not
us
figure
down
out
in the
what
darkness,
was making that
just
sharp
down the
stabbing
trail
noise.
in Sasquatch Valley.
Also, I could
Let's
not
go.
determine what was making the stepping noise, unless it was a Bigfoot. I had heard tree knocks previously, so I knew that there were several Bigfoot in the area. The noise was getting closer, but it was not coming directly toward me, but was off to the side. It was definitely a bipedal animal, and what was making the sharp noise? I could not come up with a good answer. I just kept listening as it got closer. Then the noise stopped about 70 yards from me. I knew that there was a stand of pines out there, and either it had gotten on the pine straw and was not making any noise, or either it had stopped. At quitting time, I came down, and on my way to my dad's house where I was staying, I stopped by one of my cousin's house, and I was telling her about the sharp stabbing noise. She said that she could tell me it was a walking stick or a cane, that her husband had used one before he died. So the next day on Wednesday, I went back to the same tree at 7 a.m., and I got in my stand. I waited and looked and did not see anything. Along about 3 p.m., I again heard a noise, close to the same place where I thought the thing was the day before. It made little rustling in the leaves. I looked out that way but could not see anything. About 30 minutes later, I heard a similar rustling noise in the leaves. I knew at that time that what was making the noise was either a deer or a Bigfoot. Thinking, I realized that if I got down to walk out that way, I would probably scare whatever it was away and not get to see what it was, so I devised another plan. I decided to make a noise and see if I could get it to respond back to me. So I placed my tongue on the roof of my mouth and made 2 loud clucking noises. About 10 seconds later, I heard 2 clucking noises which came back to me, so I knew then that it was a Bigfoot out there. I stayed there for another hour, and then I heard a soft tree knock which came from that direction. To me, I think it was telling me to leave. Whether or not that's what it was saying, I am not sure. But then I figured out what it was doing. It was using my corn pile as its hunting area to hunt my deer, and it was not too happy with me being there. The cane was probably his walking stick, or his stick to make tree knocks with. My wife did not believe me when I told her. She thinks that I embellish my stories to make them sound better. I did not embellish it. In fact, more things happened that I did not tell about in my narrative. Signed, Steve. First and foremost, I want you to know that this isn't my encounter, so the credit is not mine. It is the experience of someone I know and trust. We'll call him Valen. I am sharing this tale secondhand, and the events took place in the early 90s, so apologies if my telling lacks the sensory and emotional aspects of a proper shared story. Also, I'll be using aliases for privacy's sake. It was winter break when Valen and his group of high school friends gathered to camp out in a field near the home of the Conrad brothers. This field rests in northwest Arkansas. They built a large fire, as you do, and stayed up well after the sun had set. They took this time to chat and do dumb, dangerous things, as teen males are often known to do. Eventually they tired, and the cold got the best of them. They hadn't brought any tents as they intended to rough it. They soon settled into their sleeping bags, which were circling the fire, and had all passed out. Hours later, not long before the sun would rise, Valen awoke to snow falling on his face. He sat up and began to take in his surroundings. The field was now covered in frost. He noted there was next to no buildup on the field, so the snow must have just started. He felt the sensation of being watched, but not by any of the campers, all of whom remained asleep. Valen scanned the horizon. And there, next to a lone tree that took root on the bank of the creek nearest to them, stood a large figure covered in white fur. Valen made a mental note of where the figure stood in comparison to the tree just before a commotion behind him distracted him. Ian, in his sleep, had accidentally pushed the foot end of his sleeping bag into the fire. Once it was aflame, it took mere seconds for the nylon to start burning its way toward his head. Everyone awoke to his frantic responses and erratic movements, and quickly removed him from the flaming bag of discomfort and/or death. Well, no worries. No one was injured. Well, I believe Ian's pride got burned, but otherwise no physical damage. His bag, though, was not so lucky. Only half of it remained, and it was forced into early retirement. Once everything and everyone calmed down, Valen remembered their visitor and looked back, but he was nowhere to be seen. Now awake, they put out the fire as the sun rose and headed to the Conrads' home. Once there, they warmed their bones and partook of a homemade breakfast cooked by their granny. God rest her soul. She has since passed and was beloved by many. One of the kindest and gentlest folk I've ever known. She would scoop a spider into her hands to take it outside rather than kill it. Sorry for the momentary derail. But as they ate, Valen recapped what he had observed, and he asked if anyone else had seen it. They had not. This piqued their interest, though, so they decided to investigate. Upon finishing breakfast, they gathered some basic supplies and returned to the field and the lone tree. Based on its estimated proximity and placement to the tree, it would have been standing down the slope of the bank. They did not find a footprint there, but did find obvious evidence of a notable disturbance in the rocks and gravel. Using the branch Valen had noted was fairly flush with the observer's head, they believed it would have had to have been roughly between 7 feet and 8 feet tall. Letting curiosity take the reins, Valen suggested they try to track it. As we all know young men are to do, they chose the wise decision to do just that, once they had gathered a selection of weapons for self-defense only, that is, just in case. They had all figured it was most likely a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, or whatever your local or preferred title you like to use, and they just wanted a closer look. So they set off. A ways into the woods, they caught sight of him, so they followed for a bit, but they lost its track. As they moved on, they spotted it behind them, and so they changed course. Shortly after, they lost it again, eventually spotting it back in the original direction. Now, it did this flip-flopping back-and-forth tactic 2 to 3 more times, drawing them further and further into the forest each time. Valen pointed out how conveniently they would spot it, almost as if it were intentional. It now dawned on the group of boys that it was very aware of their presence, and it was, in fact, toying with them. At this, they chose to stop pursuit and to head home, realizing it wouldn't let them get close unless it wanted them to. None of them were keen on finding out what it meant if it let them get near, given this shady behavior. Besides which, the temperature was now dropping. So ended their encounter. It was not seen again, so the theory is that it was just passing through. I know this is kind of short, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I would also like you to remember how intelligent they are, so be careful and respectful out there. Some are friendly, but not all. Just like us, there are good ones and bad ones. So long for now. Signed, Jonathan.
Alrighty, here's the quilt. It is raining really bad outside, so we can't take it outside and hang it up. But however, it is 57 by 81. And we also have the pillow thing to go with it. And I'm thinking about making another one. Alrighty, I hope y'all enjoyed. We'll see you later.